Welcome, everybody. Happy Sunday. I have a special guest today. She's one of my supporters, and she's into all sorts of really cool stuff that we haven't really talked about here. I'm going to let her fill in a lot of the blanks. We're going to talk about clairvoyance first, and then we're going to talk about hypnotherapy. Okay? So I'm going to bring Devin on. Okay? Hold on. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I got you. Great.
Awesome.
So let's just dive right in. So I'm actually most interested. I'm not going to ask you your age, but have you had a Saturn return?
So I'm 39 going on 26. So yeah.
Okay, I'm 39 as well too. So okay, good. So you've had your Saturn return. So talk about your awakening first to the esotericism, and then we'll start to get into clairvoyance. So if you want to tell your story.
Yeah. So without going like into too much, I do feel like it's necessary for me to touch on a few things from like childhood. Like I always was very intuitive. I'm a 4-time Cancer with Aquarius rising, so I was always very intuitive.
I'm an Aquarius rising too. We're gonna get along great.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, so always really intuitive and always like had a deep sense of the source within, right? God, spirit, whatever it is that you want to call that higher power. And I had kind of like a rough upbringing. My mom drank a lot. It was just me and my mom, and I had to learn very quickly how to act around her, if you will, so that she wouldn't like go off on a rampage.
Right.
Essentially, I
learn
had
how to tiptoe around those demons, basically.
Yeah, I had to keep her in a good mood
Yeah.
at a really young age, basically. And so I learned very early on what triggered her and how she thought, you know, her perspectives. And so I guess like looking back, the mind always really fascinated me as well. And like how people think in different perspectives, which is why I love your channel.
Understated. It's kind of understated too that people who grow up with addictions around them in the family, they have to grow up real fast. Their childhood kind of takes a backseat.
Oh yeah, definitely. And looking back, I wouldn't take any of it back now, but that's only because I just went through it. You know what I mean? So she moved me. Well, I lived in Milwaukee. Shout out to Southside Milwaukee. We grew up there, and then she moved me my freshman year, and by this time I was, you know, involved with the wrong crowds. I was smoking and drinking and smoking weed from the time I was like 11, you know, and just with the wrong people. I was hanging around with these older guys that I had no business hanging around. I ended up getting raped by gunpoint by one of them, and then he like left me at a mall. I had to call my grandma to come pick me up, and I never told her a fucking thing. So, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can swear on here.
No, you can. You can.
Okay,
please.
yeah.
More
so
person.
I held all that in. You know what I mean? I'm going through all this shit, and I'm not realizing I'm stashing it in my body the whole time. So she moves me up a couple hours north to the Dells area, and so I go to buy a sack of bud, right? And I realize it's like 3 times the price of Milwaukee. So right there, my mind's going, you know, how can I be able to buy some of the things, you know what I mean, that my mom couldn't? And my mom was really struggling as well. So how can I help out, essentially? So I got into, you know, hustling, and then the rave crowd, which brought me into like mushrooms and acid and ecstasy, and which again, I wouldn't take any of this back just because I've learned so much, especially with the hallucinogens, but that's a whole nother ball field. So then, okay, so I'm in high school. I am supposed to graduate when I'm 17, and I'm just up to here with my mom. You know, she's constantly attacking me, and just, she's one of those loud, really angry drunks that likes to throw shit. You know what I mean? Like, not logical. From the time she was waking up until she passed out, she was chugging warm vodka. So I moved back to Milwaukee at 17. ended up meeting my first daughter's father, and I met him by dealing like with him or whatever. So I was still like doing that, even though I had moved away from that scene back in Milwaukee now. I got pregnant within a week, right? Completely toxic relationship, abusive, just the whole angry, masculine, gangbanger toxicity, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I finally got out of that, and I ended up having, when I had my daughter, I had a C-section. I was in labor for 72 hours. And the doctors, when I was released, gave me all these bottles of Oxycontin and Percocets. And so I went down that rabbit hole as well for many, many years, alongside my baby's dad, who was really abusive. And finally ended up leaving him.
Do you think you saw that relationship with him because that was what you knew at home?
It's definitely, yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Although I don't know, because I didn't have a man figure at home. But I mean, yeah, I guess my mom would have been the masculine. So yeah, definitely that repeating pattern loop, right?
Uh-huh.
And I endured many of them. That wasn't my only, but I have grown out of that, thank God now. So my second daughter's father, he didn't know I was still hooked on pills at the time. I ended up getting pregnant, and I think I low-key was hanging out with him so that I would, better myself. You know what I mean? Like on an unconscious level. And anyway, I ended up getting pregnant, and I tried weaning myself off. I was, guilty, shamed. I didn't tell anybody that I was still on these pills. I got myself down to, I think it was a half of Vicodin twice a day. And then I went into labor 2 months early, breech. And so, of course, I told the doctors, like, I didn't want anything to happen to the baby. So essentially I told on myself, even though she came out with nothing in her system, thank God, and no withdrawal or anything. Tom was really upset, rightfully so. So he ended up taking me to court with four lawyers, taking my second daughter. CPS was involved, ended up in live-in rehab with my daughter in Milwaukee. And I had a complete breakdown at this point. I started getting really bad anxiety, panic attacks, agoraphobia, like I couldn't leave. I couldn't drive. It was just, I was a mess, right?
Right.
And so then I worked my way, I was able to keep my oldest daughter through going through all these programs, but my second daughter's father, he had money, right? He took me to court, he won. And so finally CPS was dropping my case. They said, okay, you guys can work it out from here. You don't need visitations anymore to see your daughter. Dude, the next day I go to try to visit my daughter. He vamped. His whole family took off, changed their phone numbers, disappeared on me for 10 years. Okay. Which of course just had me just spiraling further and further and further. My daughter and I, a few years later, ended up homeless, and I ended up back up in the Dells area with my high school boyfriend. He found out, I talked to him, reached out, me and my daughter are homeless. I hadn't talked to him in years, probably a decade, but I was really good friends with his whole family. In fact, his brother was like my best friend at that high school. And so they came down and picked us up, and a week later, I ended up pregnant with him. So this is my third and my final. My son was born. But again, another toxic, he had been in the habit of abusing women. He was in prison 3 times previous to this. And I knew that, but here's my, Cancer energy coming out, trying to heal, these people. And so he ends up laying his hands on me, ends up in prison for 2 years. And then, and I'm just, getting worse and worse. My mental health is deteriorating, right? And then there was the Great American Eclipse of 2017. I think it was the end of September. It might have been October. And what happened was...
It was the one that Trump looked at and everyone made fun of him, right?
It was the one, the solar eclipse where you were supposed to wear the sunglasses.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people had awakenings this day, okay? Really significant eclipse. So what happened was I was in school for business, and I was trying to get my computer out so I had a paper due. And for the fourth time that month, something happened to the computer. They just kept going dead. Now looking back, I think it was my energy, my negative ass energy that was affecting these devices. But you know, I just broke, you know, and I'm like literally bawling on my knees, crying, begging, pleading, you know, God, what the hell, right? Something's got to change. Okay. About 2 minutes later, Micah, my phone starts dinging. 3 times it dings, and I look, and it's this YouTube video of, I don't know if you know who Bob Proctor is, but it's this older gentleman that I would have never in a million years ever even thought to look at one of his videos. And in there, he's talking about these universal laws that govern reality, right? And I was just intrigued, and my whole body just starts resonating, right? Like that truth you can feel, you know what I mean? That experiential experience within the body. And spirit was really, you know, telling me, showing me, like, listen up, right? So I start practicing these things. I realize this realization. I liken it. Have you ever heard of a walk-in?
Yeah.
I want to say it was something like that. Like it's me, but like something shifted in me, Micah. Something turned on like a light switch, right? I realized, holy shit, I've been sabotaging myself with my thoughts and my words and my energies and my emotions damn near my whole adult life, right? And I can't say so much as a child because, you know, that's different, but definitely my whole adult life. And so I started practicing meditation, okay? And the 4th time in, right? Well, the first time I just had this euphoria. I don't know if it was because my body finally had relaxed from all that tension or what, but I got hooked pretty freaking quick to that feeling. It was almost, I likened it to like being on some ecstasy, like that good. I don't know if you meditate at all, but
I don't meditate because I just don't have time. But what I will do is I tell people all the time in my YouTube videos, I have candles, and I'll just light it and fire gaze for like half an hour, and it'll
yeah, for sure. Definitely a form of meditation. Yeah. So my 4th time in, I'm sitting still, and all of a sudden I start having these visions, these scenes flashing. And so I start writing them down and following them, and spirit's still talking to me, and, you know, in my every move, like this whole week, you know, guiding me to, I think that was the week I actually found Leak Project. He completely unequivocally changed my life. For sure. Just
is that where you found me first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rex, if you're watching, I love you, dude. But yeah, and then I found Aluna Ash, which she's not on YouTube anymore, but she read tarot. And this was my first time being introduced to the tarot, and holy shit, my body's just vibrating. Like she's speaking directly to, how is she knowing this shit? You know what I mean? Like, how is she? What? So I was definitely, my interest was piqued, and I had to go buy me a set. And another important tool on my life that helped me completely change my outlook and my whole life, essentially. My
wife got a tarot reading when she was in. We had a lot of similar friends growing up. We were always like friends of friends, and we always had like a thing back and forth for a little while, but like it never worked out until it did. She went to London for a school field trip when she was 17 years old. She went to a tarot reading. The guy looks at her, puts down the first card, looks at her and goes, "Your father's blind, isn't he?" He was. They know. When you read the cards, when you're in tune with that energy, I can't explain it, but you do know.
Yeah, I now own about 70 sets, and I do it in my free time. I also work with Reiki. I ended up having these realizations and realizing that I was meant to do healing work. And I went and got my first, second, and third level of Reiki, and then COVID hit. I had just been about to graduate with my associates in business, and I was about to start my little healing center just out of my home, my basement, a Reiki energy healing, and then COVID hit, and so I couldn't do that anymore. And
Right.
so that's when I decided to go back to school, and I got certified in as a master hypnotist, and then finally as a clinical hypnotherapist as well. It's been a ride.
Yeah, I was gonna say the people. So I always tell people this is that the people that do the greatest good are the ones that have the most damage behind them.
Yeah.
They've mastered it.
Exactly.
As far as smoking weed goes, I have zero problems. I take edibles. I have no problem with it. However,
Yeah.
when I was younger, I couldn't manage my thoughts because
Right.
it does bring in some uncomfortableness. But if you can observe your thoughts and let it go, then it
Yeah.
doesn't do anything. Then it just relaxes you. It makes music sound more interesting. It
Yeah.
makes you think
I
deeper.
think I agree, and I think I always had a higher consciousness. Some people, you talk to them and they're just kind of not getting it. Not there's different levels of conscious. I don't want to say not getting it, but there's different levels of
Right.
awareness.
You you have to be completely destroyed in order to rebuild yourself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do. That's a wild story. That's incredible. It's also it's unique to you, but I've
Yeah.
heard all sorts of kind of stories because when I started this channel, I've done like 500 podcasts, and I decided to start a channel, and people started watching me from the podcasts that I was on. They would come over to my channel. And I find that a lot of people share their stories with me in the emails, and I love hearing them all. But there's a lot of damage going on. So let's actually start focusing on this. So clairvoyance.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define clairvoyance?
Okay, so I started having these visions, right? I think it's different for everybody, and there's different clairs, right? There's some people can hear, some people see.
Yeah, it's called
People,
clairaudience,
yeah,
clairvisual. There's
yeah,
remote viewing. There's a bunch of stuff.
yeah. So I'm able to see images in my mind's eye, and I'm also sometimes able to hear, and then I also kind of have that knowingness as well.
Right. You draw
But
them.
what's that?
You draw them as you're seeing them.
I write.
Okay.
I write. I write about them, and then more kind of comes through as I'm writing. And I have found a deep connection with Lyrian beings. I see lions a lot, and I actually astral projected. I'm a dream walker, so it's another hobby of mine. Hobby, whatever. So I floated up out of my body, and there's a ship above my house, right? And I'm like, oh shit, I want to see what's in there, right? It was the first time, like I had been trying to do this for a while, just to go like roam around in the stars and see if there's like anything up there or whatever. And I don't know if it's because my mind wanted to do that happens, or I can't explain any of that. But I float up there, and I look in this ship window, and there's a Lyrian being, like a humanoid with a lion face, beautiful being, and her cub. And it was interesting because my son was sleeping right next to me. So I don't know if that had any, but I look in the window and I wait, right? And she looks right at me and smiles. Oh my gosh, I've had so many connections. I think, oh my God, these galactic beings, right? I've actually been visited many times ever since. I was watching a video once on higher self, and it was like a Pleiadian channel where somebody was like, it's like that robot voice, but they're like talking to you, right? And they said that if you wanted assistance from the Pleiadians, all you had to do was ask, right? So I'm like, okay, let's try it. So I take my kids to school, and I come back, and I sit on my recliner, and I open my front door. The screen was shut, but the front door was cracked. And I go on my recliner, and I go into meditation, and all of a sudden I hear my door open. And I see in my mind's eye at the same time I'm feeling like electricity, right? And I see in my mind's eye, beep, 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 those like lifeline, like
Yeah.
zigzag. I see that in my mind's eye, and I wish I would open my eyes. Oh my God, I wish I would open my eyes to, like, I'm so curious. Was it ethereal? If it was multidimensional, why would they open the door? But I didn't. But I went into a deep trance that time, for about 4 hours, and then, just downloads coming through of, how I can help and how I can be of service.
Have you heard of, I think it was Barbara Marcinek, her Pleiadian channeling, Pleiadian
Yeah.
message? What do you think of that? Because to be honest with you, when I first started waking up to things, and I would get to the point where she started talking about the beings and everything, it was like I was on board up until a certain point. But the longer I started studying this stuff, the longer I was able to stay on board with her during that channeling, because I've been listening to that for like 10 years.
So I'm not as familiar with her. I've listened. I know I've listened to a couple things. I can't even really recall off the top. She was the channel. She wasn't the hypnotist, right?
No. You have your channelers like Abraham, like Seth Speaks.
Cryon. Oh my God, that's my dude.
Seth Speaks. You have Bashar. I love Bashar. I'm sure you're familiar with all these people.
Yeah,
guys,
I really
in
like
the
Cryon.
videos. Look these channelers up, because the messages they have are just pure light.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask how you like monetized it, but like, how did you start bringing people in to help them with clairvoyance?
So I started my YouTube channel and just going live on Facebook, doing free readings, and just really giving whatever message that I was receiving, at the time. Usually the messages will come either when I'm around water or out of nowhere, like out of the thin air, like they'll just kind of be there. You know what I mean? But the visions, I'll
conduit. So, and your body's made
What's
up of like 90. I said it's a conduit, and your body's 70 to 95% of it. So
yeah,
it makes sense.
definitely.
Plus, you're an Aquarius rising. That's the water too. I know it's an air sign, but there's water in this. So yeah, makes total sense. So you give readings to people?
Yeah, I do. I do some free readings on my channel, and then I also do paid readings, private readings. And then I work. I have my home office, and I also work at a holistic spa down the street. And I also offer my services at a couple other businesses in the area. My Airbnb, and then a little tea shop. I'll have my stuff out there. So I'm doing okay. It's really starting to, I'm supported, like Source, make sure that I have everything that I need, and then some.
Well, what I tell people is this, okay? Because I've been very open, and I'm sure you've heard me, because if you listen to me and might follow my work, you've heard me that when I discovered like Santos Bonacci and astrotheology, like I went into a hospital for 3 weeks, like it completely destroyed my life. But I wouldn't change anything for it, just like you wouldn't change anything for it. And you know why? It's because everything that you have ever gone through has led you to this moment. And if you are happy with who you are an amalgamation of all that stuff. It's the people who can't control their thoughts and the people who are unhappy with themselves. Okay. That's the problem. Okay.
Well, that's the problem I'm here fixing, though, Micah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm literally helping people reprogram their subconscious so that they can gain that self-mastery, right? So they can gain higher levels of consciousness. And I think it's my mission to bring more people together into these higher states. If we look at the prophecies, right, this is happening. We're headed into this new earth. In fact, one of my visions was the two earths, and this, we're in Revelations, except it's not what they thought.
Right.
It's not what we were taught.
I always tell people, because it sounds like such a broken record. It sounds like such a cliche to people who are not in the know. But the age of Aquarius is the age where we move away from the religion, and it's the awakening age. Okay, because what happens is you have the great year, which is 26,000 years roughly, and it goes around like this. Well, technically it goes.
Oh, the dark star, right?
Yeah, it goes around like this every 26,000. That's what happens when you take the 2,160 years times 12 zodiac signs. Each sign is in a year. And then you go through the great year. We're coming around the bend right now. So as we enlighten, as we come away, now as we go back around, we enter ages of darkness, but we're entering an age of light right now. And it's written in the stars, and the ancients knew this.
Yeah, the Mayans. I study the Mayans, and time is really fascinating to me. The law of time, specifically this multi-dimensional way of keeping time, is really dope.
Yeah, and the elites know this too. They know their time is coming up. That's why they're throwing everything in the book at you. That's why it seems to be accelerating. That's why they seem to be throwing things at you.
Which is why we need to come together, like-minded souls, and start gathering and really putting more energy. And we're doing it. We're doing it, but it's gonna get bigger the more we come together, and the more that we can, just be in service to creating this new higher dimensional reality.
So
how exciting!
It is. It really is. It really is.
I'm here for it, dude. I'm so in love. I'm so in love. I'm obsessed, for sure.
Amazing. Hearing your story and then seeing how far you've come. You're just full of light.
Now I'm able to help people that have had sexual trauma. I'm able to help people that have had panic attacks.
That was my next question. Question.
Yes, I'm able to help people with all of that shit.
Do you do generational work too?
Like past life stuff?
Not so much past life.
Ancestral healing?
Ancestral healing, like
sure,
if your grandmother was abused, that gets passed. We know for a fact that traumas get passed down through DNA.
14 generations.
What do you mean?
Well, the Human Genome Project proved, they did those studies with the rats, and they proved that, they were affected for 14 timelines. 14 babies down. and so the thing that they share a lot of our DNA, right? And so you would interpret from that, then if they can be damaged, they can be healed.
That's true. So you do that.
Absolutely.
Now, do people come to you and say, do people come to you knowing the past trauma?
Sometimes. And the cool thing with hypnotherapy and with energy healing, honestly, two different things, but with hypnotherapy, a lot of times they'll have realizations in session, just by me asking questions and getting them to think a little differently, essentially.
Right. So let's talk about hypnotherapy for a little bit. So you actually put them under, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how deep do you put them under?
So everybody has different, it's really up to the person. It's a participatory.
It's what the person is comfortable with, because if somebody doesn't want to be hypnotized, you can't do it. You can't do it. So some people go deep, and then some people are like lucid dream, higher level kind of thing, right?
Right. And the cool thing is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how deep you go. It's still going to affect you. I've had... I hate to brag, really, but I have had such high success rates with hypnotherapy. And we could talk about it a little bit if you want.
I would love to. I would love to know. I'm not one of the... I tell people this. I say, the people that are going to make the biggest impact in your life are always going to be the ones who have the most trauma growing up and have overcome it. And it's also going to be the people who are self-taught. Because you're not going to learn this getting a PhD at Harvard. It's not going to happen. The most interesting people are self-taught, okay? Because they have the drive and the will, and they have the spirit for it.
But they've been there. They've been there, so they know how to get through it. They've gotten through it already.
So how did you get into hypnotherapy?
Okay, so like I said, COVID hit, and I just knew that I needed something else in my tool belt for my business. With the 6-foot thing and everything shutting down, I couldn't open a hands-on healing clinic. You know what I mean?
I explained this too, by the way. Do you know why they kept you 6 feet apart?
Oh, because of our auras, absolutely.
It's because we're affecting others. The toroidal field is 6 feet.
Yes, we're affecting others. They're scared of our light, bro. They're scared of our light. So I went to HMI, which is Hypnosis Motivation Institute. It's out of California. Absolutely brilliant school.
Was it an online school or did you go
It's
there?
an online school. They also, I think they shut down. I don't know if they're back open in person as well, but yes, phenomenal school. Oh my God. I am so glad that I was pushed. I honestly wish I would have done that instead of business, but it's neither here nor there. So they study, or we study Capucinian theory, and John Kappas created this school back in the day, and they work with the theory of mind, which says, here, I'll draw you a little picture. I'm not the best artist, but I'm going to show you our little model just real quick. So if you think of this.
And you're a lefty too. I could have
Yes,
told
I'm
you.
a lefty. My
Yeah.
life path number is 11. I started learning all of these beautiful things about me. It just blows my mind. Absolutely.
For people who wonder why I brought up the fact that you're a lefty, I'm a lefty too. Lefties, when they do studies, when they do like studies and they poll people, 90% of the time they leave lefties out because the way that they learn is so different than how a righty learns.
Yeah.
That they literally have to leave them out. What happens is you have your left brain and your right brain. And for people who don't know what that is, the left is your sort of regimented work. Your think of like a newscaster from the 50s, just all facts, all information, all the time.
Yeah.
Your right brain is the creative. Now, when you're a righty, you learn how to write. Okay, all that stuff happens on the left side of your brain, which is logical. Okay, but when you're a lefty, okay, you learn on the creative side, which is the same side of the brain that you learn musical instruments, that you learn art. So you end up, it's completely different. So it opens you up to more possibilities.
All right, so check it out. Yeah, my daughter is a lefty too. Okay, so if this is the mind, right? And then down here, this is Tom, theory of mind. Okay. Down here, we have what's called the primitive area of the mind.
Bring it a little closer.
It's just a P. My handwriting sucks, but in this primitive area of the mind, think of it as the reptilian mind, right?
Right. The reptilian.
And in this area is the flight and the fight mechanisms, right? So back in the day when we needed to like run from a saber-toothed tiger, right? This is where we kind of learned, I think, about the flight or fight. And the fight is that part of you that's very anxious and overwhelmed, and that flight is when, you know, those days we've all had them where you just want to pull the blankets over your head and you want out, right? So from the time that you are born until you're about 9 years old, we live down here. None of this is formed yet, right? This is the subconscious and then the conscious, okay? About 9 years old, the critical area, this part in the middle here, the critical area of the mind starts being formed. This is when we start realizing about 9 years old, like Santa Claus might not be real. Like,
and surprisingly enough, 9 years old, it's third grade too, which is when they start teaching you, script, when they start teaching you how to write higher levels, when they start bringing the education up. Because from kindergarten to 2 is basically just like nap, drinks, lower time level stuff. Third grade too, 9 years old. That's when, so people might have memories from when they were 5 or 6. They might have held on to a memory. But 9 years old, that's kind of the age where the memories start forming and they take. Because I do teach people. I say, your brain is a sponge. It brings in all the subconscious and the conscious reality. And when you sleep, what it does is it filters it. It sets it out. But basically, when you're 9 years old, that's when you start having like multiple memories. That's when you start to become self-aware of your body, of your thoughts.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So what happens is before that age, before about 9, we are living down here in the primal and the subconscious area of the mind. And then what happens about 9, we start developing logic and willpower and reasoning, the ability to use our logic, right?
Right.
But this area of the mind up here is only 12%. This down here is about, they think it's about 88%, right? So what happens is when we are born until we're 9, everything that we are learning or having experiences with, we're having all of these known experiences. So we build positive and negative known associations, right? So maybe as a child, you touch the stove. Ouch, that's hot. That's a negative association. It's a known association, right? Maybe you got a puppy as a child, right? So, and you loved that puppy. He was really good to you. So you built a positive known association. Maybe somebody else had a puppy that bit them, right? So they
Right.
built a negative association. Now they're carrying all of these associations up, right? And they start forming these patterns. They start forming how we think, how we do reason, right?
And
So
guys, it's so important for you to understand that every little thing that you're ever exposed to with your five senses, your subconscious records.
Yes.
Everything. Okay.
Yes.
Whereas your conscious brain, okay, I might be talking to Devin right now, but my subconscious brain right now is taking in everything that is going around her background, her this, and I might not remember it. I'm just looking at her background right now, but if she put me under, I guarantee you I could describe everything on that shelf.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So what hypnotherapy does is it forms a door. It forms a door between the conscious and the subconscious. You get into that alpha, theta, delta state where you are in that relaxed area where you're in that state of allowance, essentially, right? And that's when I'm able to take your suggestions that, you know, based upon what we talked about before I put you under, and feed you those positive suggestions into your subconscious part of the mind.
Now, how do you prefer to put people under, if you're honest? Do you use a watch? Do you count back? Do you tell them to stare at a flame? What do you find? And I know it's different for everyone. I know it's different.
And you know what? You're right. It's different for each one of my clients. Because I'm very perceptive and I'm able to kind of, I do a plan before I do it. So I do a consultation call so I can have an idea of what kind of plan to kind of come up with. And in that time, I'll figure out kind of if I want to just do like progressive or if I want to do like an eye fascination, or there's many different kinds. But yeah, I think and I think it's important as hypnotherapists that we should have different styles for different people, because not everybody learns the same or takes in information the same way.
Do people call you up and they say, Devin, listen, this is the problem I'm dealing with? Do they straight out come up and tell you, you know, I'm dealing with this, can you help me get over it? And then I'm sure there's some others that are like, I've been depressed for a long time, but I have no clue. And then you have to kind of dig deep.
Yeah. Well, no. Do you really have to dig deep, or can we just start focusing on what you do want? Right? Can we, you know, and there's many different techniques. Again, there's no one shoe fits all. But there's, you know, like circle therapy where you'll have them experience the emotion in the body and then have them realize that they can get themselves out of that. And you do it a few times, bring them into it, and then bring them to that relaxed state, bring them into it. Pretty soon it stops having an effect on them. You know what I mean? Like if you're pulling that emotion in consciously, then you realize you're taking it out consciously because you're doing this, right? I'm just talking you through it. You're having that experience. And pretty soon it hasn't had that effect on them anymore. That trigger no longer has a hold on you.
That's amazing. So how often do, I'm not going to ask how many people book you, but I'm saying, do you get like pretty consistent?
It's been and so I've only been doing this for about a year, but yeah, consistently my numbers have been increasing for sure. I think the more people that I help, the word gets out there more, and it's definitely been helping.
Well, what I'll do for you is when we're done with this and I have to download this video to upload it, what I'll do is you give me your email address. I'll send you the raw file and you can put it on your channel too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. That would be great. I appreciate that.
So let me ask you a question. Do you feel, and this is an important question, do you feel like you have found your purpose? Is every day good for you?
Absolutely. I used to wake up just dreading the day. Absolutely, kill me now. You know what I mean? And now literally I have, and I'm proud of it because I've done that work. You know what I mean? I literally can honestly say that I wake up every day like, yes, it's snowing out. Hell yeah, dude. Oh, it's a thunderstorm. Excellent. Like, it doesn't matter. None of that shit can affect me. I've been through it. It doesn't matter anymore. I've learned how to take control of my power, and it's definitely, you know, as long as you're like in service to something greater, you know.
So how do you view your negative past at this time? And I'm not saying that you don't regret it because it led to who you are now. But
Right.
when you get like an intense thought about like that guy punching you or that guy taking advantage of you, like when that creeps
I
into your
see it
mind,
all as learning experiences that I had to go through to get where I am. And I'm grateful for it. Like, I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't gone through all that shit.
how old are your kids?
19, 16, and 10.
Gotcha. So your 19-year-old, because 16 is still a little young, but your 19-year-old, that's college age. You know, his frontal lobe or her frontal lobe is almost fully developed, right? Have you started exposing her to the esotericism and stuff that's out there?
Yeah, and she shuts down. My youngest, on the other hand, you know, if he's not feeling good, he'll come and sit in my lap. Mom, can you send me some healing? He's completely, he actually sees entities. He's very conscious. It's amazing. But my oldest daughter, she absolutely shuts down. My middle daughter is a little more open to it. But I think that's probably due to, you know, the mistakes that I made. You know, I was still going through it essentially when she was, you know, growing up. And she's only dealt with this me for what, like 6 years now, is it? 5 years, 6 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
So I think she's adjusting. Like, the more that she sees how I'm doing better and better and better, the less she's like, she used to just shut up. I'm not trying to hear her stomp out of the room or she get mad. Why are you mad?
Right, I hear you.
But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and it's programming. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of programming that
You have to be ready for it. At 19, I didn't give a shit about any of this. I was an actor.
Absolutely.
I was an actor in Manhattan. I was an Abercrombie model at the store, and I was an actor. I didn't give a shit about anything. I'd work out all the time. I'd party. I didn't give a shit about any of that.
Right.
You know,
So you went to Saturn return. Is that 33?
30.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
I
literally
33.
Which is literally the year that I started getting into all this esotericism and stuff. 30 years old. And well, we're the same age. You're probably older than me because I was born in September, but it doesn't matter.
I was born in July. I'm a Cancer.
You're a Cancer? Okay. Yeah, you said you're a bunch of Cancer, right?
Yeah, I'm Cancer, Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Mars.
Sun, Moon, Mercury. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did you get into astrology?
I just, you know, was guided. Like, all of these really cool things started coming into my experience. You know, spirit really has been leading the way. Ever since I, you know, got down on my knees that day and asked from a pure place of heart. And I think that's really important to point out, you know, and it does usually take, and I always like to tell my people that, you know, are coming at me like from just this rock bottom place, like, you know, usually, I hate to say it's a good sign, but, you know, that's what it takes. You know, you have to really want change. You have to be at that place, like, you just don't care. Like, what's it gonna hurt to try?
Because
right?
you know what the thing is, the best way I could describe it to people is they're not gonna make life altering changes if their life is, even if it's not always positive, if it's tolerable. If it's tolerable, you're not gonna have a groundbreaking change. You're not gonna, you know, it's the people that have to reset their brain completely, you know. A lot of people do that with psychedelics. You know, people talk about, you know, meditation and all that kind of stuff that basically you can get with psychedelics. It's basically a cheat code. You cheat.
Yeah, you don't need that shit. You really, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm not gonna put down mushrooms because I love plant medicines. I have a deep reverence for plant medicines, but In fact, I sat with DMT once, and I was shown literally how time works based upon our thoughts. So dope. But
Yeah.
yeah, like
Have you seen my What is God video?
I don't think I have actually.
I'm gonna send it to you. If you could
Yeah,
watch it and let me know what you think.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So this is wow. Okay. So I guess so. You guys know that my astrologer is Priscilla, and a lot of you have reached out to me to get her to give readings. So she's actually incredibly good, and she's got some big things coming in the pipeline that I've helped her out with. Or all I did was help her get a platform. That's all I did. The only thing I did was get her on a couple of shows, and she did all the work. And
That's
a
awesome.
lot of people
That's
are coming
awesome.
back. So if you were to talk to the people listening here, what would you say if you were to make a pitch to them, if they how you could help them?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, like I said, you have to want the change, you know what I
I know.
mean? But
Yeah.
um I'm here. I'm not in it, you know, so much for the money. The money always comes somehow. Like I said, source always provides for me. But so I would say, I don't know how to pitch you per se, but if there's somebody that needed help, you know, definitely you should ask, right?
Right.
And it doesn't even have to be a person, you know. Ask spirit, because they'll guide you to exactly the right person, and pay attention to what resonates within you, right? If
Right.
somebody, if you have to pay attention to how your body feels, you know. You can find your tribe by, you know, just really tuning
Right.
in to your inner realms and seeing if it resonates.
So you were talking about like the reptilian mind, and I talk about, again, not the way David Icke talks about it.
Right.
We're not talking about the reptilian that way. The reptilian mind is basically your midbrain. And what your midbrain basically does, and I explain it like this. I tell people, because a lot of people are like, why do you hate on alcohol? Or I drink sometimes. Does that make me a bad person? No, it doesn't. I'm not here to tell anyone what to do. I'm
Right.
just telling you the truth in that you're not going to be able to vibrationally ascend with alcohol because it's a depressant and it
Not,
lowers your vibration. And the other thing about the alcohol too is it affects your reptilian midbrain. Because Devin, what does an animal think about all day? Food, fucking, and sleep. And that's
yeah.
all you care about when you're drunk. That's all you care about. You're not going to read a book when you're drunk. You're not going to watch a movie. You're not going to remember it. That's all you care about. It's just your basic instincts. And we're more than just animals. You
Um,
know?
yeah, I think, you know, the majority of people that drink a lot, they're drinking, whether they'll admit it or not, so that they can cover up, or it's a coping mechanism. You know what I
It
mean?
is.
It's so that they can forget about. And I've helped so many people, you know, with with drinking, with, you know, obviously smoking and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, hypnotherapy is, I think everybody should be mandatory. Like, everybody should have a mandatory hypnotherapist, honestly. Like, I think everybody needs therapy. It's like peeling the onion layers, you know what I mean? It's really important. I think the more that we like really step into this energy where it's therapy's good, and you know, the more that we're going to level up as a whole.
Yeah. Because a lot of people will sit there and go, this kind of shit isn't real. These sciences aren't real. And I'm like, look, think about this for a second, okay? In 50 years, they're going to have technology that looks like magic to people like me and you today. We see this with grandparents and computers and not really knowing what to do with them. And we go through periods of time where we're accessing the ether and all the energies, free energy. You're accessing everything, you know? So if I could print on my computer to a printer 3 miles away, okay, why can't that apply to esotericism? You know, you guys have to have, you can't open someone's mind. You can
Right.
only show them the way. Now, my
Uh,
question to you is, have you ever done a float tank?
yes, I have once. Um,
Tell me about it.
it was pretty dope. Like, it was this round tank, and it's salt water in there, and it kind of comes down, and there's like stars you could look at. Um I kept getting nervous about getting the water in my ears, so I didn't have like the most solid meditation I would have liked. But I felt like at the end, I finally started to calm down, and it actually was pretty cool. I've heard of people having some really intense. Unfortunately, the one by me is a couple hours away, and so I've actually thought about. I plan on having my own healing center sooner than later. I'm looking into some grants and yeah, I'd like to have my own clinic and then get some other healers from the area together and maybe even like kick off a resort, something like that. So I really think it's important that we gather and that we come together. It's just, really, really important, and there's strength in numbers and especially when it comes to consciousness. And the more that we can, right. I forgot what I was talking about. I am so sorry. I get off topic. Okay, float take. Yeah, they're dope. They're cool.
Okay. It's okay. What was I gonna say? How is clairvoyance different than astral?
You froze for a second, but I'm assuming you said astral projection. So astral projection, you're putting your body to sleep and you're keeping your mind awake, and you literally, well, I've had different forms of it. Sometimes I don't leave my body and I just start seeing, but I'd liken that to more of like a clairvoyance. But I have had one that I could say was like both. But usually for astral projection, you'll literally like come up out of your body. They have different techniques to, like, you can imagine like you're pulling on a rope, or they have like the roll out, and you're literally come out of your body. And again, there's many different forms. I've experienced many of them. Some of them, like I'll be able to will certain things in. Like this one time, I said, "Give me light." Right? And all of a sudden there's 3 giant matchsticks appear in front of me, right? You can't make this shit up. And I go to strike one and they all light and then they die out and I'm just back in my body. Like, I can't explain it, but clairvoyance, it comes when I'm at that point of stillness, usually that 0 point, which everybody's got clairvoyance. Everybody, it's just a matter of, if you practice, if you focus on it, right? If you're willing to expand those gifts or wanting those gifts either, or I don't think that we necessarily each have a specific purpose here. I think that we're here to be and, to do whatever lights us up, whatever brings us joy and to have fun, right? It's really important. But yeah, clairvoyance comes usually in meditation. But then again, sometimes the visions don't even come until, after, and it'll come in that form of knowingness where it seems like I just get hit with like a bunch of information. And then I don't know if you wanted to touch on dreams a little bit, but I have some interesting stuff about dreams. I saw that you had a video where you were talking about dreams, and I commented on it the other day. I don't know if you want me to go there, but
yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I learned about this in my hypnotherapy school. So basically there's many different theories, right? So, but this is just one of them. There's 3 stages of dreaming, right? The first stage is what they call the wishful thinking, which is when you're processing everything throughout the day. The second stage is, in the middle of your sleep state, and that's what they call the precognitive. So you're taking those wishful thoughts and you're kind of like determining, what to take of them, what direction to take them in. And then the third is the venting stage. So these are the ones that you're most likely to remember. They come in the early morning. And a lot of people tend to think that, if they have like a really crazy dream, that it's a bad thing. But usually they don't understand is they're venting that shit out, right? And I think you had talked about, oh God, I can't remember what you said. I think it was like about a certain person from, or maybe somebody commented it. I don't remember, but it was about like, they were wondering why they started dreaming about their ex from like 10 years ago. And I would say that it's because of that time period. You're venting out something that happened when that person was in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
There's also no hard consensus on whether or not. So we know for a fact that when you're dreaming, your brain cannot create new people. It cannot create a new face. Okay. Your brain can only remember. So if you're like, that's not true, there was someone I never saw before, I swear to you, you saw them somewhere, even if it was just in passing. Okay, your brain cannot create a new face. This is an inception. Okay, it cannot create a new face. But what your brain can do is bring in people that you recognize. But usually those are just Jungian archetypes that just stand in for someone. So if I had a dream with you in it, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean it's you, even though it's your face. Okay, so there's that school of thought right there that says that just because you recognize your ex, it doesn't even mean it could have been your ex. It could have been someone completely different. And that's when you start going into dreamscaping and stuff. So
yeah, and there's so many different theories. They're all interesting. I love learning about all of them. I think there's good stuff, just like in any sacred text. There's good stuff in there, but there's different perceptions on it, as you know very well.
So my last question to you is: have you ever astral projected, looked down at your body, and noticed that you were still tethered to it with like a cord or a string?
I didn't notice a string, but I can tell you this one time I was on my bed, and again my son was sleeping next to me, and I came out of body and I started like jumping on the bed, but my body was there, but I didn't notice the string, but I started jumping on the bed, right? And I was gonna see, this was the time when I, like around the same time period when I was trying to get up into the sky. And so I wanted to see if I could jump on the bed and like shoot up there, you know what I mean? And then I saw my son and I was like, oh shit, what if I wake him up? And that thought bounced me right back.
It's amazing because it's kind of like you're most conscious. Like it's pure consciousness when you're outside of your body.
Yeah.
But when you get a self-aware thought of yourself, it's like it snaps you back in.
Isn't that crazy? It is. It's so amazing, so fascinating. That whole topic is
And I just wanted to end with one question too. Have you I'm sure you lucid dream all the time, or you have.
Yeah.
When you become self-aware that, oh, I'm in a dream, do you ever try and accomplish something?
Yeah. So I got really interested to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth for a while.
You should see my astrotheology video on that. It's astrotheology and quantum physics. I'll send you both afterwards.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, and that's where I was kind of like playing around with the matches and trying to like will myself certain places. Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. I forgot what the question was, but
no, it's okay. I wanted to know when you have what do you call it? Lucid dreams. Like when you become self-aware, like, oh, I'm Devin, and oh, I'm in a dream. Do you ever try anything?
No,
are you ever self-aware of your conscious mind where you're like, oh, I should do some soul work right now or anything?
Yeah. I'll actually do dream walking where I go and I'll do like quantum healing that way for family. I've done that. But yeah, like the whole thing with lucid dreaming is that your mind is still awake. You're still aware, and you can, it's really easy to do it this way also. If you like set your alarm for in the morning and then do it from there, because then you're like in that state already. But if I feel like that way you're more likely to actually fall asleep. But yeah, you're self-aware. You're keeping your mind awake while you're staying absolutely still and allowing your body to go to sleep. That's the whole thing.
Right. Well, Devin, this has been absolutely wonderful. I could talk to you for hours and hours.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Anytime.
But this is wonderful. I will definitely have you back on. I just wanted to ask you one last question. It's a little bit of a little slight ego thing for me, but I wanted to know because I saw your post on Facebook. So two things. Number one, tell everyone where they can find you.
So my YouTube page is Divine Interventions. It's spelled Devine because my name's Devin, Devan. Interventions, not interventions. So it's Interventions, and that was just a spirit guided name. Or I'm also on Facebook, DevanDavidson. I have multiple groups over there. I'm on TikTok, Divine Interventions. It's either Divine Interventions or DevanDavidson.
Right. Okay. So hopefully some people will come over to you and check out what you are about.
Yeah, definitely come on over. I'm working on building my YouTube platform right now. I got 150 new subs this week, so I'm really like trying to get all the way to 1,000 by the end of the year. And I think I found a strategy to get me there. So yeah, come on over and push me over. I appreciate
Please do that, guys. Please do that. She's wonderful. My last thing is that I wanted to ask, and it's a little bit for me, but I saw the post that you put on Facebook that I was one of your favorite truth seekers, and that I asked you to come on. You were so excited, and it just made me so happy. I wanted to know, what do you think of my work?
Oh my God, really, dude, you are awesome. You already know. Amazing work. Like, honestly, deciphering the sacred texts, that's legendary. Like, you're doing an awesome job, and man, yeah, definitely one of my favorite truthers out here for sure. No lie, no bullshit, no cap.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to much love. Okay. And I will message me your email address. I'll send you the raw file. You can upload it. But this is
Awesome.
going up right now. So thank you, Devin. I'll have you back on soon. If you ever have, if you're ever like, oh, I have this really cool thing that happened, or I have this idea, and you want to shoot like a short half-an-hour episode, reach out to me. My door is open for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure. Appreciate you.
No problem. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.